My name is Bruno Latour. I'm professor in SciencesPo and I live in Paris and I work in science and society.
So, how would you define your activity? Are you a scientist? Are you an anthropologist, a teacher, a philosopher?
I'm a professor doing philosophy and a bit of sociology and a bit of anthropology.
Okay.
And I am an academic.
Okay.
And a writer.
Okay, so can you tell us more about Gaia and about the Gaia Hypothesis by James Lovelock?
Gaia is a scientific theory which was long sort of at the margin of geoscience and geophysics and geobiology, geophysiology, which has been developed in the 70s by a guy called James Lovelock and a very interesting lady who died unfortunately called Lynn Margulis, which is instead of considering that the Earth is basically dead with a little life on it, but life, because of its activity, has actually generated a large part of the phenomena on the Earth that we observe in our own small region, so to speak. So that life has a very important consequence on many other phenomena, like, of course, the air that we breathe. There would be no oxygen in this place if there was no life form. There would be no mountain, at least no sedimentary mountain without life form, etc., etc.
Okay, so it's a bit like less anthropocentric than the other theories that were developed before?
More or less?
Less.
The first one was not anthropocentric, the idea was that it was dead.
Okay.
This one is that it's biocentric, that is, if we have to use one term, it means that there are many parts of the phenomena we observe on Earth which cannot be understood without including life activity in it. Not only human, but worms, bacteria, which are many more important, trees, plants, etc.
Okay. Another important theme that you use in your theories is the repoliticization. So it means incorporating politics, arts, and nature in the same feature. So what concretely does it mean to repoliticize?
Well, first, nature is a political term and a moral term. I mean, in this beautiful library, they didn't talk, well, it depends, this is 17th, 16th century.
Yes.
So the notion of nature was not stabilized as it is now, but they would have talked in this library about creation, and they would not have used nature as we do today. So when we began to use nature as we do today, it was already a political, ethical concept. Okay? So in my view, but it's a marginal view, Gaia is a way of repoliticizing the notion of nature.
Okay, in what?
In the sense that it clearly says that it's about order, ethics, that it's about composition, that it has to be, that is the activity of myriad and multiple agents which do not unify the question. When you use the word nature, you immediately associate it with the unity and universality of nature, the laws of nature, let's say. But the point that then it means that when we talk about nature, we are supposed to talk about a unified ensemble. Now, the advantage of Gaia, this is my view of it because it's disputed, because some people say that Gaia is the Earth as a whole. But I have many arguments to show that this is wrong. Gaia is, on the contrary, the multiplicity of life form and their activities. But that's a dissenting view.
Okay, so it's going further than James Lovelock did before?
No, I think it, well, that's an interesting, I think James Lovelock struggled with this notion of Gaia, and sometimes he, for sort of what you would call communication reason, he pushes the fact that Gaia is one system, but in his writing and in his scientific writing, he shows actually, in my view, the position I maintain, which is that it's a multiplicity of agents, but it doesn't have a unity. It does produce some sort of homeostatic situation, but it's very fragile, and we could mess it up, which is the important political point, and we are messing it up.
Okay, well, thank you. And now we hear a lot in this period talking about the COP21 in Paris. So why do we talk so much about it, and what are the challenges that it will face? Why is this important more than it could have been before?
Well, because it's the first time that, I mean, the COP itself is the first time there is something like World Assembly, where the Earth is sort of gathered in a political arena, and not just because of human or economy or war, but about things which used to be in the environment in the old days, that is outside of our concern. So this is what first reason why it's important. The second is that there is now 30 years tradition of those meetings called the COP, and many of them have been failures.
And why? What
So,
are failures? Like what are
well,
problems?
the problem that it means a change in the whole ways of life of the whole Earth, and this is very difficult to obtain, necessary. In a way, you can say it's amazing that we already are so advanced in taking care of that question, because it's very strange that so much politics is actually about things of nature. But on the other hand, the difficulty itself is enormous, because it means changing everything from transportation, energy, food, commerce, in addition to all the usual battle we have with religion, with law, etc. So we have all the other conflicts that we have been waging for millennials, that is killing one another, and we know very well how to do it. And in addition, we have all the other new conflicts about what it is to be on Earth. Now, it doesn't mean that the next COP, the one in Paris in December, will absorb all these questions. But it is certainly, if we follow what the scientists are writing, probably threats become very close. So the more we wait, in other words, the more difficult it will be to do anything.
Okay, so you have hopes that the COP21 in Paris may be more successful than the previous one?
Hope I'm not completely sure, but we have to do as if we had the hope, let's say.
Okay. And like in this context, you're organizing a simulation of COP21 with SciencesPo. So how would you represent in this simulation the natural elements that you want to include in this?
I don't know how to do it, but I do as I always done in my teaching, which is when I don't know how to do something, I say to the students, do it. And they manage to do it. So I hope they will find the solution, but I don't have the solution. I just suggested that the parts which are outside of a COP, the legal COP, real one, which consider only nation states, that we make bits and pieces of nature enter the negotiation as parties, as if they were nation states, but as if they had some of the features of sovereignty, which is of course fiction, but after all, simulation is made for that. It's like building a model where you work on the climate. You add artificial situation to see how the thing works. And here we add the artificial possibility of having non-humans being represented.
And do you think that it may actually be realistic?
I think it's more realistic. I mean, realistic. It's less realistic because it's impossible to do for the corner.
Yeah.
But it's more realistic in the sense that we enter those features which are neglected or pushed aside by the real COP. So it does exactly the job of a simulation, that is, it's simultaneously less real, and you observe phenomena that you could not observe otherwise.
Thank you. And last question, we wanted to have your input on this term of Anthropocene that you used in the conferences you did, I think in UBC. So what is this Anthropocene? Are we really in this period? And is it like Superman's consecration, and he said in some interviews? What is it, this Anthropocene?
We don't know if we are in the Anthropocene because the jury is still out on it. The jury is made by very serious geologists, and we have not decided yet. But the last paper I've read, and I think the latest which has been published, is that if we are in the Anthropocene, we have a date. And the date is July 1945, which is the moment when the first atomic bomb was released in the atmosphere, and it makes a very good signal in the sediment of rocks, which these guys who are geologists can detect. So I think the chance of having the decision made that we are in the Anthropocene is fairly good. Which is not good news, because I much prefer that the decision would have been that we were in the Holocene,
yes,
which is the geological period before, because that one was very quiet, and we could not mess it up so much.
But is it time to realize that we are in this Anthropocene and to start acting? So
yes, if we are in the Anthropocene, well, it's not only that we are acting, it's also that the Earth is reacting very strongly. And we prefer that it's not. You know the story of Pi?
No.
The story of Pi is a film where you have a man who is shipwrecked with a tiger.
Yeah.
And he has to survive in a boat after the shipwreck with the tiger. So he sinks in the water, and there's only him and the tiger who recover from the shipwreck.
Okay.
And the film is entirely about how do you survive with a tiger. But that's about where we are.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.